Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's conversation. Let's give ourselves a few minutes so people can start coming. I hope you are all well. And if you were here in Melbourne, you would have had a lovely day, beautiful sunny day. Hello, how are you? So we still have a couple of more minutes. Before we start. Nice. Hello. Hello, guys. How are you guys? Nice to see you here. So I think now it's already time. It's 6:15 and we will start with our prayer. My name is Helen and I'm a volunteer here at the Spiritus Center, like the Paul and Stephen Spiritus Center. And today we will be talking about love as a religion. And this is a very interesting and important topic, and we will see why. So let's start by relaxing wherever it is that we are, so we can make the most of our time together. We will elevate our thoughts and connect with our spiritual mentors and guides, asking them for inspiration to help us broaden our understanding of the eternal truths, and also ask them to help us apply the learnings that we have into our day-to-day lives, and to stay with us. So be it. So, hello everyone. Really nice to have you here today. So like I said in the beginning, today's topic is love as a religion. And before we start, this topic is based on Genesis, and it's chapter 17 and items 31 and 32. And Genesis was the 5th book that was compiled by Kardec, and it comprises of the teachings of higher order spirits through different mediums. And this book was first published in 1868, and we will see that the topics that we're covering, they're incredibly up to date to what we're living here today. Okay, so if you want more information, you can download, it's called Genesis by Allan Kardec. You can find it online and you can download for free. And like I said, it's chapter 17, items 31 and 32. Before we start, I just wanted to have everyone on the same page in regards to the concepts we're going to be covering, which is love and religion. Because these two words have so many meanings for different people, I just want us to be on the same page on what we mean and what we don't mean. So we'll start with love. Love, and very briefly, because that could be like a 1-hour explanation or exploration. So love is a concept that we as human beings here on earth, we're still learning what it truly means to us. But we have some glimpse and some ideas of what that means. And there's other conversations here in the Paul and Stephen Spiritus Center Facebook group that talks about love. So if you want to explore that, you can look for the videos, and there are others. But basically, what the spirits told Kardec, when Kardec asked what charity meant, they said that it's benevolence towards others. I'm even going to read. Indulgence towards imperfections, and forgiveness of offenses. And just keeping in mind that at no point they said that we were to comply with people's wrongdoings. We should correct wrongdoings, but it's just in regards to the spiritual being, the eternal being that we have to be benevolent, we have to be indulgent, and we have to forgive the offenses. Okay? So that's the idea of love that we're bringing. The next is religion. And religion, if we look in the dictionary, I'm also going to read. It says it's a specific set of organized beliefs and practices usually shared by a community or group, or a particular system of faith and worship. However, if we look at the etymology of the word religion, it comes from religare, which is to bind, to connect, or to bring together. And that idea of to bind and to bring together is more connected to another term that we hear nowadays, which is spirituality. So religion and spirituality do not walk necessarily hand in hand. It should, but not necessarily. So the origin of the word religion was more connected to spirituality. And let's look at what that means. So spirituality is more of an individual practice, and it has to do with having a sense of peace and purpose. It's the quality of being concerned with the human spirit and soul as opposed to material and physical things. So it's more related to who we truly are, because we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, isn't it? Okay, now that we have all the terms, we're going to go to our topic. And I'm going to start with a story, and it's a story that many might know, but it will be relevant to what we're discussing here today. It's a story about a monk who was a very, very wise monk, and sometimes he would take some people to come and learn with him. And this monk, he had a cat that he really cared for. However, when he was going to do his meditation practices, he noticed that the cat would be around and sometimes he would make noise. So he adopted the idea of putting the cat in a separate space to where he was meditating so he could meditate better. So the people who were learning with him already knew that every time he started to meditate, they were supposed to take the cat and put the cat outside in a safe space. And they would come back and they would meditate. As time passed, new people came to learn from the monk, and the monk started growing old. And people just assumed, because the people before them taught them, look, when the monk starts to meditate, we have to put the cat outside. So people would put the cat outside and everyone would go and meditate. And the monk finally passed. And the students continued the practice. So they would come and they would put the cat outside and they would meditate. One day the cat died. And they said, oh my God, we don't have a cat. So we have to buy a cat so we can put the cat outside. And why did I bring this story? I brought this story because this is what sometimes happens to an initial teaching or practice. We have the initial core teaching, which in this case was a meditation or the act of connecting with their own spirituality. And we had something that was useful at some time, which is putting the cat outside, that at some point it got misunderstood why that was being done. And when the cat passed away, if they had truly understand what the master had said, they would only keep the practice of meditating, because there was no need to buy another cat, because the cat had nothing to do with the practice itself. So when we look at our religions today, and by religion here, I mean the systematic religion that has a structure and that has organized sets of dogmas and practices. Initially, if we look at religions around the planet, and I started looking at some to prepare for this conversation, the essence of those religions came from a teaching from a higher order human being that came here on earth. And they brought universal truths. They brought a truth that will never, never die. And we can think of that truth as a diamond. However, similar to the story of the monk, when that wise being was not with us anymore, people only had their limited understanding. And sometimes they took some practices that was more practical and necessary for that time as something that they had to do. But the diamond is still there. And in Genesis, there's 3 parts to the book. So the first part, it talks about Genesis and creation. The second part talks about miracles and explains a few passages from the gospel. And it explains it under the light of Spiritism. Okay, so it clarifies what that really meant. And then the third part, which is where we're looking at, which is talking about predictions of what's going to happen in the future. And item 31 and 32 talks about the conversion of all belief systems towards one truth. And we will see that the spirits say that is something that will happen. And why is that? We're going to see right now. And it's based on John 10:16. And if you look at the book of John 10, you will see that the teachings that Jesus brought there, he's talking about how someone who's responsible for a faith or transmitting some guidelines of living, like truly living, how they should behave. So he starts talking about, as a metaphor, a shepherd and the sheep. And the shepherd being this person who is responsible for delivering this way of living, or this way that people can live so they can truly be happy. And the sheep are the people who are learning from that wise person that supposedly should be wise. So that's what John 10 is about, talking about the shepherd, the behavior of the shepherd. It's worth reading it because it's very, very interesting. And Jesus was talking to religious people at the time that were responsible for teaching the religion at the time. And the people didn't understand what Jesus was saying. They did not understand the metaphor, that actually they were talking about them, that they should care for the sheep, and that the interest was to develop the sheep. They didn't understand. However, what does he say in John 10:19? He says this, and I will read. I have other sheep that are not from this sheepfold. I must lead them also. They will listen to my voice, and there will be only one flock and only one shepherd. And like I said, that's John 10:16. And the spirits in Genesis, they clarify to Kardec that what that meant is that eventually belief systems would converge to one, and there would be one understanding of the divine truth. And right now, like I mentioned before, the spiritual beliefs, or the religions as well, they have diamonds within their whole practice. However, and I'll quote the spirits on this, he says that the unification of beliefs will happen, but it seems very difficult in light of the differences between religions, the antagonism they nourish among their respectful adherents, and their stubbornness in believing they have exclusive possession of the truth. And the spirits continuing saying that all religions want unity. However, they all flatter themselves by thinking that all will happen to their advantage, and nobody is willing to make concessions in regarding to their own faith. And that applies also to us, that we have to think about that as well. Within the Spiritist philosophy and any other philosophy that people believe in, we have to understand that the truth is the teachings that the higher spirits brought us, and how we apply that to transform our lives. And we will see that that will converge into the ideas that we can get from love. And in Genesis, they continue, and this is very interesting as well, that although everything will come to one unity, it will not be just religious wise. They say social, political, commercial unity also will be accomplished. And that's why, because as time passes and we transform as human beings, the barrier or the barriers that separate people and isolate them from us and them, that will be broken, and everyone will come together. However, he says that that will come either we want it or not. And that will come, let me just continue here, through the aid of science and philosophies, because it seems like sometimes that science is destroying religion, but that is not true. And the Spirit says that what is being destroyed is what was man-made in the religions. So remember the example of the monk and the cat. So the monk itself, in the meditation, in the practice of connecting with divinity, that will maintain. What will crumble when science and philosophy and reason develops is the putting the cat outside. It's the practices that doesn't have to do with our true connection with divinity, which is the true meaning of the word religion, which is connection, binding, isn't it? And we can find that as well. And I found it so similar in this book, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. He has, in the beginning of this book, he has a chapter on spirituality and religion. And I'll just show you how much we have progressed and we're going through the same kind of ideas. He says that the new spirituality, the transformation of consciousness, is arising to a large extent outside of the structures of formal, existing, institutionalized religions. So people are exploring this connection, this spirituality, not necessarily within a religion, but through the universal truths that are brought through different higher spirits. And in Spiritism, we have all that condensed in the basic books, because we had all the different higher spirits responding to Kardec, helping us better understand what is real and what is temporary. And they also said in Genesis that it will happen not through the structures, because religion are so rigid in a sense. And that's why I said that we always have to question ourselves. And even in Spiritism, we have to question ourselves if what we're doing is not becoming a practice more than an embodiment of the principles that the philosophy brings us. So because it's very rigid, the Spirit said, it's not going to happen, the transformation within the institutions. It's going to happen, the transformation of individuals within society. And you can find that, like I said, in Genesis, in this chapter. And here as well, with Eckhart Tolle, you can find the same, look how similar it is. He says that the ego institutions, that ego focus, that's focused on self instead of universal truth, are destined to dissolve. And all the ossified structures, whether they be religious or other institutions like corporations, government, will disintegrate from within, no matter how deeply entrenched they appear to be. The most rigid structures, the most impervious to change, will collapse first. And that's exactly, if you look at Genesis, what the spirits said in 1868. That because the spirits are because the different belief systems, they're very rigid in terms of what's right and what's wrong, and are not willing to look and revisit the basic teachings of whoever brought that philosophy, that won't sustain with progress. Because science is going to come, and philosophy and human reasoning, and it's going to just break all the things that were man-made. And what's going to stand is what is the divine, which is the diamond within. And that's what the spirits told Kardec. And we can see that new philosophers from our time, like Eckhart Tolle, he's saying the same thing. And you can find that in others, which are not particularly religious. They're not attached to a religious institution. We have to always remember that Allan Kardec always said that we have to question everything. And if science presents something that was different from what he captured, for us to follow science and evolution and the evolution of ideas, because he knew that humanity would progress. And maybe he wouldn't have captured things the way that they truly are. However, he said that Spiritism, or any true religion who aims to link us to universal truth, is going to be ever evolving. Because what we were 100 years ago, how much have we come, isn't it? Look what happened 100, 150 years ago. And look where we are now in terms of equality, in terms of human rights, in terms of caring for animal life and for the planet. That transformed radically. And so if a religious or a philosophy or a body of ideas doesn't follow that in some sense, it probably won't make sense. However, truth can never be destroyed. So divine truth will always exist. And we might make mistakes toward one side or toward the other, but truth will always prevail, even if it takes a while for us to get there, because it's universal. And that's what these huge spiritual masters came to teach us. So none of them, and I looked at all of them, none seemed to have come to create a religion as per se. Religion in the sense of a structured, organized organization. They came to teach us how to live better, how to behave with ourselves and with others, and how that can transform our life from the better. That's what they came. So they came to give us guidelines. And in the back of the Spirits book that I have, it says that the teachings that the Spirits brought us is a guide to ethical living. So the body of knowledge that the higher spirits have brought to us here on earth, be it through the Spiritist philosophy, be it through any other means or any other place, the body of knowledge that was brought by them, that is universal. And that should serve us, not to admire and think that that's beautiful, but to actually live the principles. And what happened in the past, let me see what time it is. What happened in the past is it was easier for us to, and I'm going to use the same analogy of the monk because it's easy for us to see. It's easier for us to put the cat away than to sit down and meditate. So it's easier for us maybe to do the external aspects of a certain practice than to do the real transformation. And the Spirit's book brings us that there's two main purposes. There's two things, there's two tasks that we have in life, mainly. The first one is an internal task, and the second is an external task. And the internal task, and you can find that in question 132 and 167. The internal task is looking and knowing ourselves and improving ourselves from within, aligning ourselves with the divine laws, aligning ourselves with what is good and positive and life enhancing, life promoting. The Spirits told Kardec in the Spirit's book, in the end of the Spirit's book, in the conclusion, that all the good spirits, their ideas, they are life promoting and life enhancing. They're non-violent and they bring good. And that's how we differentiate when an idea is not promoting life enhancement or in betterment of human life. We have to think again, because they say that a good spirit will always, everything that they say has to do with nonviolence, has to do with the promotion of the divine laws. And I was watching the movie Gandhi. I had watched it when I was younger, and I decided to watch that again. And because he walked amongst us, it's easier, isn't it? Like he's more closer to our time. And he had ideas that were incredibly different from what people around him were living. So he was at all times, he was in favor of nonviolence. He really lived the teachings of his religious belief or his religion. And he had a very close friend that was a priest, and the priest gave him the Bible so he could read, and he would read that. He would read different texts, and he would say, if I can interpret these with my understanding, they all seem to converge to one point. However, if I have to follow the way each person interprets or each religion presents them to me, not always I will believe that. And he would say to the priest, they were really good friends, he would say, the day that all the people that read the Bible apply that to their lives, then I'll believe that that's the way that I have to live. Because he really believed that the teachings in all religions, and what he wanted was that everyone lived in peace, and the different religions in India to coexist. And in Genesis, the spirits say that in order for this convergence to happen, all religions should find, or all belief systems should find, a common ground that they all have and work towards that instead of finding the differences. And if we look at the common ground, and if you research on the internet, all the common ground that they all have is the golden rule that says that we have to love our neighbor as we love ourselves, which is the law of love. So if we look at all that and all what the spirits said about the conversion of the belief systems, we can see that the belief systems will converge to a belief system based on love, which all of them, like I said, have that in its basis as a diamond that sometimes is hidden and sometimes is very visible. So that's where we are all going to. And it really reminded me, it's almost time to finish, it really reminded me of the song by John Lennon, Imagine, where he says, and it's very similar if you get the Genesis and if you get these books that I was talking about, that imagine in a future where people can come together as brothers and sisters. And that's what he was proposing, that we started imagining that, where there wouldn't be religion as a means of separating people, that there wouldn't be countries as a meaning of differentiating people and separating them in a negative way. And that people at some point would come together, that he was a believer and he was hoping that other people would join them. So what I had to bring today was this topic, that no matter what we believe in right now, everything is based on the law of love. The universe is based on the law of love. And the sooner we learn that and we start applying that, the more aligned we will be with the future of spirituality and our connection with divinity. So I hope this brought some value to you here today. And I hope you're all safe and caring for yourselves and your family. And I'll see you guys next time. And we'll finish with vibrations. And today, we normally do vibrations, but today we're going to vibrate for all religions around the world. And for all, even within certain religions, there's some division. So today we're going to vibrate so people can truly understand, like Jesus brought us in John 10, that eventually the truth will guide us all towards the same loving spirituality or religion. Okay, so that's going to be the purpose of our vibration. So if you want to join me, I think it's time. It is. So let's relax. And despite being separate, and probably people watching this later in different times, we know that we can connect with our spiritual mentors and the spiritual mentors for the Paul and Stephen Spiritist Center, and ask them to help us in our intention to vibrate love to all the religions around the world and all the positive, love-focused religious beliefs. So as we gather our thoughts and we connect with each other, we imagine that from our hearts, a beautiful energy comes together. And we ask the higher spirits to help all the spiritual leaders around the planet. Not only the spiritual leaders, but everyone who in different channels, despite being within a religion or not, are promoting the idea of embetterment, of spirituality and connection to our true reality. We vibrate much love for all of them and all of us. May we see that we're all working towards the same goal, that we're all working towards unity and union. We're all working towards finding a common ground. And we ask our spiritual mentors and guides to inspire the different religions to really understand that the essence of all religions is the transformation of humanity, and that we're all working for the same shepherd. and we're all part of the same flock. Stay with us. So be it. Thank you, everyone, and I hope to see you another time. Bye.